get the phone call at 4 a.m. By 5:30, you're in the secret installation. The commander explains tersely,
Lieutenant?
Yes, sir.
It's about the slipgate device.
Yes, sir.
Once we perfect these, we'll be able to use them to transport people and cargo from one place to another instantly.
Damn, that's good.
An enemy codenamed Quake is using his own slipgates to insert death squads into our bases to kill, steal, and kidnap.
No!
Yes.
No!
Yes, and the hell of it is we have no idea where he's from.
Damn!
Our top scientists think Quake's not from Earth, but from another dimension.
Damn!
They say Quake's preparing to unleash his real army, whatever that is.
No!
So this event is in middle of May, but we're already starting on it, so it's great. So it's and other places I've worked, we would have started in May. It's been like crazy.
Dump truck, ArrrCee, can you guys hear me?
It's next week. I'm like, oh shit.
I can hear you, Donde.
Awesome. How's it sound? Does it sound okay?
It's a little on the low side, but maybe just get closer to the mic, or just maybe
a little quiet, but it sounds good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Is this better?
Yeah. Let's hear one more thing. Just tell us.
My cat's name is Roly Poly. He's orange.
Another cat person.
Yeah.
Yeah, you sound good.
Okay, great.
Totally.
Well, hey, thank you guys so much for what you're doing. You guys have a really awesome podcast, and I've been really enjoying listening to it every week. And I just am a big fan of you guys and all that you have great chemistry on the show. Very good energy.
It's all an act.
Oh.
We actually hate each other, so.
No, ArrrCee is such a great guy. How can you not, just have a blast with him? So.
Well, I'm a little bit starstruck. I consider you guys to be both Quake gods, so it's awesome.
Yeah, oh no. Not me, anyway. ArrrCee,
yeah, no way. No. But that is very flattering, though. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. It makes us feel good. It makes, I love getting feedback because it's like, do people care? I mean, does anybody care about it? So it is nice to get feedback and okay, we're doing something, right?
Well, I'm not what I would call like a knowledge person, and I don't know if you could tell from when I was trying to connect in our last attempt to record this, but I struggle a bit with the technical side of computers and gaming, and you might even say it's taken me 20 years to really understand like one game. And then I don't know that I'm there yet, so that's a work in progress.
That's cool. Actually, these are really good lines for the show. Let's get that into the show here. Well, before we start here, Donde, do you want us to just bill you as Donde during the show? Call you that, or Arthur? What do you prefer?
Yeah, let's go with Donde, I guess, please.
Okay, great. So normally when we start these things, we let everybody know that when we ask questions, me and Dump Truck are obviously going to have issues speaking, so we're going to be taking notes here to write down different time codes to be like, okay, we need to edit that out. So if you ever say anything or want to redo an answer or have to cough, anything like that, just let me know. I'm going to note it right here, and I'm going to edit it out in post.
Okay, great. I've prepared a lot of written notes, okay. So hopefully it'll be... if you don't mind, like I might give the last the line that you said, oh, that's a good line for the show. I might re-record it.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah.
The one about my cat being orange. No, not that one.
Well, you could certainly talk about your cat because Sushi's a big presence on ArrrCee's show. But what I was gonna say, I have two things. I think we told you before, just don't close your tab until we know we have the file uploaded, because it's recording on your side and then it uploads it. So just hang out until we finish that at the very end of the session. And then I told ArrrCee already, but I might have to jump off, and I'll just do it really quietly, and I'll type in this chat here that I'm away. So I didn't want you to think I dropped or I'm not listening or whatever, but I have an old dog I gotta...
Oh, no worries, man. I totally understand.
Up, when he has to go to the bathroom right now. So, anyhow, and then I wanted to ask you, just in general, could you just tell us in general, like overall, what you're going to talk about? Or are you going to talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have what I would call like my story of how I got into like Quake 2 as like a history project. and that kind of goes through like my addiction problem to like getting to this project and inspiration for like the time period of like the late 90s and how it was like a period of technological transition, and
that's great.
Then like kind of going into a couple fun references from the late 90s. I was going to talk about a movie called The Zero Effect and how I kind of relate to that, which came out in 1998, as well as this like homeless rock climber guy a little bit. And I wanted to read a very short, no more than a full sentence poem, and how that relates to Quake, and then also like talking a little bit about like just that this project has been really cool because it's introduced me to like different mods, it's introduced me to different people, and like learning those stories has been so rewarding. And so I was going to talk a little bit about meeting a guy that's a speedrunner at QuakeCon, and like what that kind of led me into reading about, as well as a jump mod, just a little bit in terms of like how Nookie wrote like this really cool research paper about jump mod.
Great. Yeah, no, that's cool. That's plenty. I just kind of wanted it in general, like if you were going to talk about your videos or just other stuff, just so I knew kind of where to maybe go with some questions and things. But I'll just shut up and listen. And
oh God, no! I'm so sorry. I'm like Woody. I just talk too much. I don't know if you've ever seen the Robert Smigel cartoon from Saturday Night Live, where it's like the ambiguously gay duo, and
yeah.
But they had one with Woody Allen where Woody Allen is like delivering like this monologue while on screen, like in cartoons, like they're showing like the apocalypse and the end of the world, and then like Earth like after humans, and he's just talking, and I could just see like you're going to the vet with your dog, and like ArrrCee's like at Stop and Shop, and like come back.
I love that. Dande, I did want to ask before we started though. I did see that you mentioned your sobriety in there.
Yeah, and I do have notes on that. I was going to talk about, not trying to force...
That's what I was going to ask you, is if you actually wanted to talk about that, because I know it's personal, so I didn't want to bring it up if you didn't actually want to talk about it.
Oh, yeah, no, please. I don't think that the story would be complete without bringing some of that into it. So don't worry, I'm ready to talk about it. I have some notes on it.
Excellent.
All right, well, everyone hold on to your butts. I hit record. Usually, Dante, we go for about an hour or two, so we'll try to keep that in mind, too.
Okay, great.
Yep, and if we get to a point where, there's something burning on your mind, you ever want to come back, we usually offer people to come back as well, so...
I'm just so thankful for the opportunity, guys. Like I said, like I'm a huge fan of your show, and I've been listening every week and learning a lot just from all the interviews and amazing people you've had on. And I love your personal chemistry on the show. It's very amusing to me. So thank you so much for putting out such a badass podcast.
Of course. So, okay. Usually how we get started here is we usually ask people in the very beginning how they got into Quake in the first place. So whenever you're ready, go ahead and start things off and let us know how you got into Quake.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So like I was saying, like when I was struggling to get the podcast recording a couple weeks ago, I'm not what I would call like a knowledge person. Like I didn't come into Quake with a lot of computer skills or technical knowledge, and it's really been a struggle to really understand like kind of the back end of how like mods and even config files and pack files and all of that works together like with Quake 2. I guess it's been like 20 years I've been playing one game, and you could say that it's taken me that long to even begin to wrap my mind around how to work Quake 2. But basically, like what I learned is that, all the fun that I'm having in the Quake universe depends on like a modicum of me having my shit together. For like the Quake fun, like at a base level, I need to at least like have a stable place to live, like a computer, internet access, and that necessitates like a job and routines and the support of my friends and family, and even like my amazing partner Raven, who has done some of the voiceover in these Quake 2 videos that I've been making. So I'm just really thankful that like as an adult, like I have the opportunity to kind of revisit the game of like my high school years, Quake 2, and I feel like there was a time period where like I was going through a lot of stuff and I didn't have that stability and I didn't have like my shit together, and so I really missed out on a lot of like the good years of Quake. So it's nice to be able to go back and revisit that material.
Well, that's cool. Before we jump ahead to that, though, because you do have some really interesting stuff to talk about. In high school, like, when was the first time you heard about Quake? Like, how did you first see it, and then say, like, I got to get into that?
I think that I was I went through like a brief window where I was considering myself like a hardcore gamer. I think maybe because I would buy like Die Hard Game Fan at the magazine store. And I was big into Nintendo. Had like every Nintendo up to like when Virtual Boy came out. And I think that I started to branch out a little bit into the PC gaming because of friends at school talking about different games. And I remember I was playing Total Annihilation, and then for some reason I felt the need to go to Circuit City and pick up Windows 98 at like the midnight release party. And so that was kind of weird. And that was probably the first time I ever made contact with what would become my people.
I love that, my people. My people. Yeah.
But yeah, I started to play with some friends that I went to high school with, and we were just born at the right time. So that, to be honest with you, I know this is going to sound crazy. I can already hear it sounding crazy. I've never played Quake 1. I've never played Quake 3. So I think it's just like really kind of, it's almost like a carbon dating of how old I am. I was born in 1983. That I was just perfectly aligned with the release of Quake 2, and my friends in high school and I started a Capture the Flag clan together, and so we were playing, like while we were on the phone with each other.
Any particular reason why you didn't play through the other two, or even try them?
Well, something happened to me. Like, I had been like this big Nintendo fan, and I don't know if like my brain stopped growing. I mean, I could definitely give evidence for that, but I just stopped kind of advancing through new systems, and I just kind of stopped, picking up the newest releases. And there was just something about Quake 2, and I guess maybe it was having that social aspect where my friends and I were playing in the OGL ladder for the Q2 CTF that compelled me to stick with it. I was in a clan from like 98 until 2000, and we actually had on our team what would become like one of the greatest Q2 CTF players from North America, whose name is Vince Romito, or Hops.
Interesting. I think, competitive, when you're in competitive play, it feels like to me, just my observation over the years, is that, you kind of stick to the game for quite a while. So, for example, the Quake World folks, in Europe definitely have played that game like pretty much straight for 20 years. So they stick with the game that they love and that they know really well.
I'm very much inspired by that. I think that there's something really cool about sticking with something. I don't know why this is coming to my mind, but I was reading about how there's like a phenomenon going on, I think in Scandinavian countries, where on public television they've been showing like train travel from the view of a passenger, and like the entire trip, like even if it's like a 12-hour trip of like the scenery passing by, and people have been like finding that like very rewarding to watch.
Yeah, isn't that wild? I heard about that. That's crazy. Just because people, the government's like, dude, you need to chill. Just watch this.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that there's definitely like a reason why it's legal to buy CBD in the gas station now. But I'm just really happy about it because, I really do feel like I missed out from like say 2001 until like 2010, so almost a full decade of Quake, because I was just like kind of down and out with my own struggles, and it was like problems with I was struggling with my own addiction issues. Like when the late 90s, when Quake 2 came out, it was just my mom and me living together, and she was an alcoholic, and she was like getting worse with her issues, and Quake 2 was kind of this way for me to escape to another universe. And at that time I was playing so much and using it as an escape, or maybe my mom's mind was kind of slipping so much that she would hear the clicking noise of my mechanical keyboard even when I wasn't at home. Like if I was sleeping over at a friend's house, she'd be yelling, "Stop playing Quake!" And so it was something that I was spending a lot of time on, and also that was like kind of the first time I ever like smoked weed, and I would stay up late, and have these good times.
So you're staying up late playing with your clan, which looks like it was called RCP, is that right?
Yeah, it was called RCP. It was named after the gun in GoldenEye, the RCP-90 gun.
Okay.
And then as a funny inside joke, which I guess is so funny and so inside that it only makes me laugh, RCP stands for Rare Cat Poop. And I basically got out and moved to Chicago and started working in restaurants right when I was 18 years old. And my mom actually passed away just a couple years later, and that kind of kicked off a tough time for me. And I was going through these years where I was really up and down with my own alcohol and drug addiction problems in my early 20s. But now I've been sober from alcohol for 11 years. I'm a big marijuana guy. I think that for me, eliminating alcohol and focusing just on weed in all of its forms, like edibles and smoked and vape, was actually a healthy move. But it's totally not, for everybody, and I totally respect that. So I guess, it's to each their own, but for me it was a way to escape the kind of destructive cycle of my alcohol problem.
Yeah, and no, there's a lot of truth to that too. A lot of drugs and alcohol, especially, it really affects people differently. There's some people who can manage it and have a couple drinks a week, and other people who can't. And then there's other people who can smoke pot and feel a certain way, and other people who hate it because it makes them feel paranoid, whatever. But I just want to say congratulations on your sobriety. That's huge.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I feel like it's a great blessing because, like I said, I feel like I can revisit, this era that I kind of missed out on, and I don't think that even if I had been playing Quake during those years, though, I would have really understood the picture that I'm kind of beginning to see parts of now. Because now I'm really understanding more that Quake and Quake 2 were these global gaming phenomenons. And I do this history blog where I go onto the Internet Archive and I screenshot old websites and I post them and try to honor the work that different communities and individuals were putting into Quake, into the Quake universe. And some of the top posts of all time on the Quake 2 blog are from Germany and South Africa and Australia and Ukraine and Canada and many more countries. And I began making videos out of this material, and the latest Quake 2 history video on my YouTube channel was made almost entirely from archival news footage from Spain. And with the help of my sister, who speaks great Spanish, and Google Translation, the entire film is in both languages, in Spanish and English. So I feel...
I was going to say, I was really impressed. It sounded like you spoke fluent Spanish too.
Oh, I do speak Spanish on that video, but I don't think that... I don't know. I work in restaurants, so I'm always practicing. But thank you. I think that there's a lot of room for improvement.
No, but what a great historical document, and you literally took the time to do it in 2 languages. That blows me away. That's great.
Well, I was really inspired because a lot of that material, I feel as an English speaker, I wasn't coming across these stories by Googling in English, and sometimes you actually have to go to the original language and use that in searching or on the Internet Archive to pull up this material. But with that story from Spain where the guy lit the box that was signed by all the creators of Quake 2, he lit it on fire, that for me was there was just endless gems. Sometimes I feel like I'm a truffle pig in the forest, and I'm just howling at the base of a tree because I'm like, good Lord, like, how is that not dug up, you know?
That's crazy. That's awesome.
But
Now,
there's...
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say that, that's like a whole other reason beyond, like, you know, that connection to, like, growing up and my friends and, like, my mom that gives me this passion to talk about, like, the history of Quake 2 is that, like, beyond, like, what's personal to me, that this, all this old material, like, with the old videos and from the Internet Archive, it's, like, connected me to, like, people's stories that are all around the world. And so I feel like there might even be, like, some kind of anthropological, like, implication to what I'm researching. And, you know, there were some really interesting sociological phenomena that were going on in tandem with the kind of Quake 1 and Quake 2 phenomenons, the golden era of those games' releases, like the spontaneous self-organization of Quake clans, like all around the world. Like, you have people who don't speak the same language, but they're behaving in unison and collaborating on non-commercial content that was leading to them getting, like, jobs in the games and tech industry. And you have, like, these massive LAN parties that were happening for the first time, and organized leagues and tournament play that was leading to, like, big prizes. And I feel like that was kind of like a precursor to what we now call esports. And women gamers were, like, kind of stepping forward in that time to challenge what had been, like, a male-dominated gaming world in new ways. And that was really exciting. So there's just a lot that inspires me about that period. I guess much more so looking back and reflecting.
Now, how are you in contact with? So, in other words, you go on the internet, the Wayback Machine, and everything, and do your research. But how much contact do you have with folks that were in the communities at the time? Are you making new friends or finding old people, or how is that working out?
You know, I feel like there's a lot of, like, platform building that I'm doing. Like, when I started working on the history project, it all began with, like, the Internet Archive and the blog. And I had, like, hundreds of posts before I ever made the first video. And what had happened was, like, on the Internet Archive, I realized that I was coming across all of this unpublished video content, and I didn't want to just put it out there out of context, because I felt like it would be much richer and better appreciated with the storytelling that it was due. So I circled back and started to use some of the video files that I found to tell these stories. And I feel like I could circle back again because, to be honest with you, I'm not sure that all of the videos that I've made are actually watchable. I feel like it's a work.
Editor, so we'll have to talk later.
There's room for improvement, and you know, at least. And I feel like, yeah, maybe the more recent ones are getting to a better place, but I just see a lot of room for improvement. But at least, like, I'm collecting the material, and I've been in contact with more and more of the original content creators, for sure, and that's been awesome. And I'd like to move in that direction, like doing a little bit, like, of the brave work that you gentlemen are doing such a great job doing with the interviewing and direct, you know, storytelling. And so I'd like to move in that direction. And by publishing on the blog and the videos, it's definitely connected me to a lot of people from the Quake community. And
yeah,
so,
I definitely see the sort of allure to digging up the past and finding certain people and whatnot, because I've been saying it since I started doing the Quake Grave, which is all of these people who did, like, 1, 2, 3 maps back in the 90s and then just, you know, pieced out, they left.
yeah.
I always wonder, like, what are they up to now? What are they doing? And it would be so cool to catch up with these people. But I digress, though. Yeah, you have this gigantic YouTube channel full of, like, all of these really, really interesting videos where you put together old footage, and then you have some where you're actually playing through some of the maps that you are showing off for, you know, whatever reason is going on at the moment. You said that some of your videos you feel are sort of unwatchable, or maybe
they're very rough.
On that edge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think makes them unwatchable in that way? Because I watched a couple of them, and some of them are pretty funny.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, thank you. I think that, like, it's just been, like, me developing, like, the kind of skills to tell these stories, and that involves, like, a lot of different elements from the video editing itself to, like, understanding a little bit about, like, how audio becomes, like, so important, and, the pacing, and making sure that I'm bringing the audience with me rather than, just putting onto them like this archival footage. I feel like I've been doing a better job with, like, say, like the last 3 or 4 videos, kind of being the narrator and stepping up and delivering a story. But I feel like if you look back at, like, for example, like, I made a test video a couple years ago about trying to track down who made the map ArrrCee CTF1 Ladies Blues, and I was able to successfully find Richard Tompkins, who made the map, and now we're friends on Facebook, and I still am afraid to tell him that he made my favorite map of all time. I still haven't told him that, which is, but at least, like...
No, you gotta tell him, man. You gotta tell him.
He's scary. He's a scary guy. I mean, he's not scary, like, in a bad way. He's a badass. He's like a guitar player. He's like, he made the best Quake 2 CTF map of all time, and I just feel a little intimidated by his awesomeness. And
you might tell him, and he might be like, takes a drag of his cigarette. And goes, of course it is, kid. Of course it is.
Well, with that map, like, Ladies Blues was, like a non-canon, like non-id software Quake 2 CTF map, and it became, like, huge. It was, like, on the OGL, like, map pack. It was played, like, in all these leagues around the world. But there's, like, there's no Genesis story, like, in the Internet Archive. Like, I can't find, like, when did it come out, who first put it into circulation. Like, there's, like, a review for it, like, at the Boomstick Joint, and that's pretty cool. And there's the text file from the map itself, like, where the map maker Richard Tompkins talks about using bots because he's lacking in the Friends Who Quake department. And so it was just like a black box to me. Like, how do you find out more about that? And what actually ended up being so cool about that story is that Blady was his good friend that was helping him, like, with his technical limitations, like fixing his computer and testing the map. And Blady's Blues is kind of a call out to their friendship because they would play music together. They were both musicians, both guitarists, and they would play, like, blues songs and rock songs together. And the way that I found him was there was a video from 1998 of Blady playing at a blues fest that Richard Tompkins recorded or something like that. And so it was like I wasn't able to find them through, like, any searching for Quake, but actually through searching for them and their friendship based around music, I was able to find him. And what ended up happening, I don't think that I can take any credit for this because, like I said, I haven't reached out to Richard Tompkins, was that just like last year or something, these two guys, Richard, who made the map, and Blady, who inspired the name of the map, got back together in a band and started playing like pubs in the UK together. And so it was like this beautiful, like, I don't know, like, I used to freak out that, like, like in the Neverending Story, like the Nothing was coming, or the Night King was coming, to, like, get to rid all of the internet and the world of Quake history, and that we were all going to become old and die off. But what I've realized is that, like, there's a lot of reason for hope. And, like, Jahar from Tasty Spleen, I think, like, said to me, like, that nobody ever really leaves, you always come back. And that makes me feel really a lot of hope that, like you said, like, somebody that might have made just, like, 3 maps in the late 90s, like, we might get back and hear from them again, because there's something really compelling about Quake and Quake 2, and it will bring you back.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's a great sentiment, and it's, I think if I had to boil down what you're doing for the Quake 2 communities, you are documenting things, but you're also really documenting the human side of it, and that's so important, and that's so unique in just gaming in general. One thing I just very briefly wanted to touch on, as I'm looking at your site, There's a lot of stuff in the press about male toxic, syndrome or whatever they want to call it.
Toxic masculinity, I think is that
yes,
right?
exactly. Thank you. I'm still making my coffee here. But there's so much talk about that on the press, and to a degree, all of us sitting in front of our computers separated, I understand what they're getting at, but you look at some of these things that you have on your site and some of the videos, and that bonding experience, these people that came all around the world to Quake, say like QuakeCon or some of these events in Spain, they never had seen each other in person. I mean, I've had this experience multiple times where I met someone online and met them either at a LAN party or at QuakeCon, what have you. And there is something that's kind of lost in that. My kids have had LAN parties over here, and I'm really glad I encouraged that, because they're in the Steam world, where acting, you know what I mean, and they just don't have that experience, because it's really not necessary with high bandwidth, etc., and just everybody's working their ass off just to survive. So I do believe that part is a little lost, but it's not gone forever. And you've documented this so well, and I just have to, my hat's off to you for really touching on the human side of this stuff, and with humor as well.
Oh, I appreciate it. Yeah, I feel you on the toxic masculinity, and there's a lot of negativity out there on the internet, and my whole kind of goal in life, especially going through some of the challenges that I've been through, is to try to become a positive influence on the universe. And kind of going back, if I could, just to talk a little bit about how the late 90s was a different era, and kind of a special era, and touching on how you were saying that people were meeting each other and having that kind of face-to-face contact through their gaming on the internet, much more so than you kind of see happening nowadays. There's a way to look at the world that we live in now, a frame that I would put on it, which is that a lot of the changes that have come through technology were kind of saw their genesis in the same time period that Quake 1 and Quake 2 came out, and the world really started to change from analog to digital technology, and the birth of the internet was all happening and kind of fueling the Quake 1 and Quake 2 phenomenon. And Quake 1, which not a knowledge person, and I don't want to speak on something that I don't really know so much about with two guys that I consider to be Quake gods, but I would say that Quake 1 for me seems more like kind of a fantasy world, like a Lovecraftian influenced on the design, and Quake 2 is more kind of straight up science fiction with humans versus the alien mutant machine race of the Strogg. And they even use the tagline for Quake 2, the line between man and machine should never have been erased. And that was December 1997. And that same year that Quake 2 came out, 1997, IBM's Deep Blue defeated Garry Kasparov and became the first computer program to defeat a world champion human being in a chess match under tournament regulation. And there was an episode of CBS Sunday Morning, during that described that match, where Charles Kuralt, who was the host at the time, joked, "The future of humanity is on the line." And since then, we've seen the internet, certainly several orders of magnitude more powerful, artificial intelligence, or as we say in the Quake universe, bots have now beaten the human champions of Jeopardy and Japanese Go, and just this year, 2019, the world's top human pros lost to DeepMind at StarCraft 2. And so we're
I didn't know about that.
oh yeah, it was devastating, but those machines. But I've actually, let me say this about bots and Quake. I've actually heard from the Pentagon, because I'm really tied in with those circles, that a human versus a machine may lose, but a centaur that's a human that is using machine technology, like the Strogg, would beat any computer. So there is reason to hope. But
That's amazing.
I'm just trying to say that, like, now, like, we're, like, much farther on down the road of, like, societal upheaval, if you will, or at least, you know, the effects of this technological disruption that kind of began in the late 90s. And I've certainly seen, like, this toxic masculinity and also, like, you know, more division and extreme polarization in politics, and even, like, the ever-widening gap between the haves and the have-nots kind of as a wedge. And so one thing about, like, the human storytelling of, like, the Quake 1 and Quake 2 universe that really compels me is that the more I research, the more I get to tell the story of how this game brought together people from all these different countries and backgrounds and beliefs, and it's, like, a beautiful thing to keep learning how many of us, like, share the love for playing this game. It's like Quake and Quake 2 is like this thread that connects a particular group of people from across the world, the people that happen to live through the transition from analog to digital technology and the first wave of the internet. And, you know, when I was going through that time myself, I was totally clueless. But, you know, now I kind of see through all this research that the late 90s was kind of a starting point for where we are now. And I'm still trying to figure out, like, what that means.
I think a lot of people are, to be quite honest. I mean, not just in games, but in with history in general. Because you got to figure, with the advent of Quake in the 90s, it was, and Doom also to a certain respect, you know, it was also the advent of the internet becoming a mass thing. So,
absolutely,
you know, with you know, them creating a game that's about someone being turned into this, like, crazy, you know, cyborg machine thing, you know, Strogg. But also, you know, they're almost predicting, you know, what could happen 1,000 years from now, which is wild to think about.
Absolutely,
the internet is definitely making it feel like that is something that will happen at some point if we don't blow each other up before then.
Right, and that's a trope that's been in science fiction for many, many generations, and they brought it to life in Quake 2, which is a lot of fun, and the subsequent games that feature the Strogg.
And all the funny Strogg puns.
No, I need to hear some Strogg puns.
Oh, like the Stroganoff? Like, now that's a very clever one because it's a call out to a very tasty dish, but it's also, you know, in a non-toxically masculine way, kind of poking fun at self-pleasure.
It's a double entendre pun.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's some more clever way of expressing it. It's not coming from me.
Well, let me tell you a little bit about also how I view myself in this role of Quake 2 historian, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah, of course, man.
I'm going to call out an obscure film as an inspiration, which was released in 1998 called The Zero Effect. And it's a film that's starring Bill Pullman as Detective Daryl Zero, and he has an agent, Steve Arlo, who's played by Ben Stiller. And it's you know, I'm not going to say that it's side-splittingly funny, but I think that it's very amusing and well worth watching. And Ben Stiller describes Bill Pullman's character as this. He goes, "I'm telling you, he never leaves the house, okay? I mean, he's like some kind of recluse. He's a complete freak. No social life, no social skills. It's a strange fucking thing. When he's working, the smoothest operator you've ever seen. Brave, slick, cunning, can do anything. As soon as he gets off work, it's all gone. Afraid to go to the dry cleaners. Literally. Too uncomfortable in his own skin to go out and eat. Tactless and inept. Rude, too. Just an asshole." And I don't think of myself as an asshole, but I definitely, you know, have some need to kind of use Quake and Quake history as an escape from just how loud and chaotic the world can be. So I kind of find inspiration in, like, using, like, the investigation itself as the escape.
Yeah, you get lost in it for sure.
And I try to have certain rules. Like, I don't want to limit myself. Like, if I find something amazing, like, I want to really give it justice. And it's changed my life, man. Like, I was working for, like, a celebrity chef in Chicago, and I actually went from a full-time management schedule to a part-time management schedule to facilitate the beginning of this Quake project. And the Celebrity Chef knew that I was doing it, and they signed off on it because I had worked for them for so many years, and he was very supportive. And so I really appreciate. Thank you, Chef Rick Bayless. Amazing.
That's awesome.
So let me ask you this: when you went part time, what was your plan there? Were you planning to make this like a full time job somehow, or?
Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, I find that I mean, thank you to. There's a group of people that is donating money to the project through Patreon, and I'm very thankful for all of their support. And I would like to, keep pressing on with it, but I doubt that it will ever become any kind of income. It's more of a. There's just been a lot of awesome support, and it's even like the guys at I don't know, is id Software still the name of the company? But Bethesda, is that what? Right?
Yeah,
Bethesda
owns id Software, and so they're basically a kind of a first-party studio for them.
Well, I don't know for a fact who did this, but I think that Tim Willits might have sponsored my visit to QuakeCon. And
nice! That's
so
awesome.
There's just been.
So you're going in August.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going. I'm going for sure. I think it's at the end of July this year. But
they changed it. Okay.
This was the last one last year, and it was a big surprise. And they just they kind of reversed the charge on my hotel stay out of nowhere, and I feel like it was from. It must. I mean, I'm kind of stoner. I didn't really follow up, but I sent. I was like, who else could do that? Like it was either like the Quake gods themselves, who must be crazy, or Tim Willits. So Oh, let me. Can I just before we get away from that crazy movie, the Zero Effect? The real reason why I wanted to bring that up is actually something that the detective says, and this is not like the only person that's inspired me to be like kind of an investigator. I used to, when I was a waiter at a restaurant in Boston, wait on Errol Morris. The documentary filmmaker, and was like, probably like I am with you guys right now, talking too much, bothering him. But I was very grateful to spend any time, and I really got into like his films, and his process was something that I was studying. But anyway, this character, Daryl Zero, played by Bill Pullman in The Zero Effect, he says, a few words on looking for things. When you go looking for something specific, your chances of finding it are very bad. Because of all the things in the world, you're only looking for one of them. But when you go looking for anything at all, your chances of finding it are very good. Because of all the things in the world, you're sure to find some of them. And that's how I feel about Quake history. Like, I feel like anytime I specifically go out there, I'm gonna, like the QuakeCast is a perfect example. Like, there are people, and it's not just me, that are obsessed with trying to find some of the 100-odd episodes recorded by Stephen Hieslip, from Blues News, and Judge Cal, who was this amazing early media correspondent that actually passed away. But he was like the co-host and really an awesome dude of the original QuakeCast, and there was video and audio recorded of every episode, and it's gone. It is gone. And nobody can find it.
Man, well, and that's kind of good because I did appear on the QuakeCast.
No way, man! We gotta get that.
I did. I was, and you might find this interesting too, because we've never talked about that. But the people who listen to the QuakeCast probably know. I've said it a million times. I did work on Zero, which was kind of unofficial mission pack. It was still commercial.
Yeah.
And so.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
I was a sound designer, quote unquote, and a tester, and then also kind of the PR guy because I work in marketing, which was ridiculous because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But it was a disaster.
What? No way.
I was not prepared. I don't remember a lot about it, but let's put it this way. I was really nervous. So I know I have a high voice. I don't have one of these kind of voices. I have a very high voice, and
If you have a high voice, I was thinking of your voice as Barry White, Deep Velvet. What is my voice?
Well, I think this is like, I did smoke for 15 years, and I'm not sober, so I think it does affect my vocal.
So you're saying there's hope for me, is what?
There's still hope. But so my voice was really high, and I was really nervous, and listening back to it, I had I have no idea why, but let's just put it this way: I didn't sound super masculine.
Come on, no way.
I'm serious. And I made a couple jokes that fell flat, and they were kind of double entendre, like I'm taking my clothes off, because I was changing my clothes in the summer, and it was really hot.
Oh, don't be so hard on yourself. You're a Quake god yourself. Those guys were super serious, though.
It was a great show, and I probably listened to probably at least half of those 100 and some odd that you mentioned, but because I was totally, I was just total Quaker,
Oh, that's awesome.
I was on the show, and they asked me questions, and I just wasn't prepared at all, so I couldn't answer half the questions. It was terrible. So please, no one find that. Please don't find it.
I have this theory, man. I don't know if you saw that. I had actually when I was doing the Spanish and English translations, a lot of that was inspired by the video that Professor Stephen Hawking made for that conference in Spain. And he talks about how talking is humanity's greatest strength, and how we have a great future ahead of us if we just keep talking. And I have this theory of his, which it's not. I'm not saying that I have this. This is Stephen Hawking, where he was talking about black holes and how you can't actually destroy anything using a black hole because everything is imprinted as a 3D hologram on the event horizon. And that's how I feel about the Quake universe. I don't think that stuff is gone, man. I think that stuff is looming. It's about to. I can't wait to hear that interview. I bet you sound amazing. We're all our own worst critics,
Well, I don't know.
I bet if we listen to those jokes now, that they'll be very on topic, and we'll all laugh.
Well, thank you for the encouragement. I appreciate it. And I do want to say, just while it's a love fest right now, you are, and I didn't mention this, I meant to mention it earlier, you're one of the first people that I had on my list. I don't know if ArrrCee will remember this, but you were definitely one of the first person I wanted to talk to on the list. And then we just got kind of jammed up with a bunch of weirdo.
Oh man, thank you, but I'm just so thankful for this opportunity at all. To be honest with you, I wouldn't put me on your list. So.
Well, you called yourself a stoner earlier, so I'm just going to totally fess up right now. When I told ArrrCee, I'm like, yeah, there's this kind of a stoner guy that makes these Quake 2 videos. It's like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, I've seen him smoke pot. So it was pretty funny. So I'm super happy to have you here. But anyway, I digress as usual. So.
Well, my sister is probably listening. She's probably I have a very small family. It's just my aunt and my sister, and so and thank you to both of them. But she's probably listening. So I'm just going to change the topic from marijuana, if I may, and just talk about her. She did an amazing job helping me translate that video into Spanish. And her and her husband, they own a rock climbing gym in Los Angeles called the Stronghold Climb. And she has all the testosterone in, the family between her and I. She climbs mountains, and she's zero body fat. She's the Terminator. And she's smart. She has a PhD. Exactly. And she kind of turned me on to this other influence that was this guy who was a rock climbing guru, and his name was I guess his Quake name would be Chongo. It's a climbing name, but his real name is Charles Victor Tucker III, and people call him Chongo, which I guess is Spanish slang for kind of monkey, because he's this really big passionate rock climber, outdoor big wall climber and slackliner. And he followed his passion for rock climbing to this extreme, where this guy Chongo, in the late 90s, when Quake 1 and Quake 2 were in their golden years, he was living illegally at Yosemite National Park, outdoors, kind of camping permanently, amongst the giant trees and under the California sky, and he was spending all of his time rock climbing and slacklining, but also researching physics and writing. And so while we were all like when I was in high school, like mindlessly staying up all night, like smoking pot for the first time and playing Quake 2. This guy, Chongo, was like living with off of 100 pounds of food and bedding and climbing gear that he stored at the base of the Sea of Dreams route on El Capitan, and writing this book that he called The Homeless Interpretation of Quantum Mechanics. And he started it off with this poem that I find really inspiring for the whole Quake project, which is that all the dreams, all the schemes, and all the beautiful scenes that ever were, first never were, then were forever, then never ever were again. And I just feel inspired, to follow like this passion that I have for Quake 2, because I don't know, sometimes like using the Internet Archive, I feel like I'm traveling back in time to kind of save something forever. And I guess like if I was writing like this manifesto, I would change that poem to read that all the dreams, all the schemes, and all the Quake 2 scenes that ever were, first never were, and then were forever, and then never ever were again. And so yeah, there are the times when I feel like I'm like time traveling through the Internet Archive, and then sometimes I feel like I have the power to skin change and warge into the perspectives of like whoever recorded old demos. And then like during those times I feel like I've become like the three-eyed raven in Game of Thrones, and those are the times that I'm definitely super stoned dump truck.
As long as your eyes don't turn milky, I'm totally
Oh man, like there's the line, you'll never walk again, but you will fly, that for the three-eyed raven. And in all these deathmatch guides for like Quake 1 and Quake 2, like Thresh, and I don't know, if you look at like the skills tag on the Quake blog that I made, like it has like all these like deathmatch guides, and everybody's always like, always run, don't walk. Although in Quake 2, if you run, you make footstep noises, and if you walk, you don't. So like I think that a lot of people that are like really deep into like the dual game on like the Edge Q2 DM1 would say that walking is better because you don't make any sound. But whatever, that whole line of you'll never walk again but you will fly, I just wanted to bring up how that kind of ties into speed running. And I had met this guy at QuakeCon, and we've become friends. I was playing with him, I think it was just last night. His name is BTF Deadbeat, and he's a Quake 2 speedrunner. And he was in Jahar's clan, BTF, which is the Brothers of True Fragging. And he kind of turned me on to one. There's all these awesome Quake like research papers that have been published, and one of my favorites is Zigzagging Through a Strange Universe by Anthony Bailey. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but it's basically like a document that was published on Quake Done Quick, and I think it's still there on like the awesome QuakeWiki.net website. And it's talking about how, like, starting with like the Doom engine, there was a physics anomaly that allowed players to run faster than usual using a special technique, which was by running forward and strafing sideways at the same time. You would run along the diagonal of a square in the Quake universe in the same time that it took to run along either one of the sides of the square. So by moving, like, it's strafe running basically, and by using like a zigzag pattern, you can even heighten the speed effect. And then it gets into bunny hopping, and how because there's no friction in the air, if you combine this strafe running with jumping, you can start to believe that a Quake guy can fly. And so I was, I love how deep like the thought process was to really analyze the physics and the universe of Quake 2 to create like this Zigzagging Through a Strange Universe. I would recommend it. It's still archived out there. There's like another awesome movement-based mod for Quake 2, which is the jump mod, and that's where it's not like a deathmatch where players are facing off against opponents, but it's like the player is facing off against themselves and trying to better their time on these maps that are challenging their movement skills. And this guy named Nookie wrote like this awesome physics like research paper called Quake 2 Physics. Quake 2 was coded by aliens. And Dump Truck, I gotta know if you've heard of this, because this is like, I don't know if you've smoked this much weed, but he's
like a dare or something.
he's talking about what? I'm sorry.
I'm just kidding.
He's talking about how like all Quake 2 maps are built in a box of 3D space, and how the maps themselves, like within that 3D space, how you move inside them is determined by like where they're placed relative to the 0 point of the 3D space that they're bounded by. So, for example, like in Jump mod, like one of the things that you do in Quake 2 Jump is you change your CL max FPS value, and with a higher value, like say like 100, you're able to jump vertically higher, and with a low value, you're able to move forward by strafe jumping faster. So, like on the map Q2 DM8, which is the warehouse, if you're in the main room with CL max FPS setting of 100, and you're up against those boxes, and you hit jump, you're going to jump to the top of the box, and then you can jump again and get to the top of the next box. And so you can jump up big boxes on Q2 DM8 with that higher CL max FPS setting. But if you do the same setting on the map Q2 DM1, the edge, and you go up against the same size box and you hit jump, you're never going to get on top of it that way. And that's because the entire map Q2 DM1 is placed beneath the center point of the 3D space that it's bounded by. So there's like this point 0 that's above everything on Q2 DM1 that's always going to be pulling you down. So it has like a gravitational effect on.
That is wild.
I know, man.
That's
it's
insane. I actually Googled it while you were talking. I'm looking at the screenshots, and it's like, wow. I had no idea that the physics were affected by the difference between the origin points. That's insane. I'm going to read this thing.
It's just it's disturbing in a sense,
it's
but
pretty esoteric. But
yeah,
whatever. I mean, it's pretty wild.
But just picture me like with like very, very limited Quake knowledge. Like I like I said, like I was like sober like 11 years ago. But I've only been playing Quake 2 since 2012 because I couldn't get it running on a Mac. Like, I just couldn't overcome the technological limitation of finding, like, Fruits of the Dojo. So imagine me with my, like, lizard brain reading that for the first time, like, super stoned. Like, that's, like, how I got sucked into this thing.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean...
It seems like, you have a hell of a lot of articles on here. I mean, I didn't realize there were so many that are buried in here. This is great.
Well, I would be, really upset if I forgot to say a big thank you to my friend Beaver. He's like this guy that has been like a tireless community organizer for people that are still playing Quake 2 Capture the Flag. We play like an Instagib, much faster version. But he's been like always like getting in contact with old players and creating like space for us on social media and on Discord, where like now we have like a community that is like playing every night. I just wanted to send a big shout out to Beaver and also to all the guys at Acme CTF who were running like the last resort L-Fire CTF server for like over a decade. Worm and Yowza and Josh, this gentleman that was actually one of the original guys from Lasermine CTF back in the late 90s that continued to help us play and have all these good times, and we've met many times, we're good friends, but I just wanted to say thank you to everybody that is keeping this thing going, because for me, like, there's nothing else like it, and it's just so much fun that I get to not just like research the game and find out about the stories that underpin everything, but to actually play the game like on a daily basis and have fun with my friends is like priceless for me. So I just wanted to say thank you to those guys.
Well, it's obvious, Dante, that you have a ton of passion. That's one of my favorite things about this community. No matter which Quake people are into or which 90s FPS people are into, there's so much passion behind like what people are doing, whether it's building maps or building mods or digging up old articles. It's really sort of heartwarming and kind of romantic in a way that everybody is so, they don't want to forget this time from their youth. It's kind of fun. But regardless, we don't want to get maudlin here. I want to close the show here by asking you, because you mentioned the guy Worm, and you had a really funny story when you were working with Rick Bayless, the chef, something that happened.
Yeah. We would do like
so if you could tell this story to close out, I think it'd be great.
Yeah, for sure. We were doing like menu change photography. Like we would change the menu every month, and I don't know if people know who this is. Now, I've moved now from Chicago to Connecticut, and I think that maybe if you're from Chicago or from the Midwest, this is a chef that has a PBS show that I think is in those regions, played pretty regularly. It's called Mexico, One Plate at a Time, and he goes to a different region of Mexico every season, and really finds about like the food and the traditions through human stories and through like cultural anthropology. Is trying to his best to not like reinvent the wheel, but to just show American audiences these dishes and introduce them to Mexican culture, and has been this like great educator, like both through his restaurants and through his PBS show. So he's somebody that I've been inspired by greatly, and he was side by side with me, like with a light box set up, and we have like our DSLR cameras, and this is like a fine dining, like Michelin starred restaurant, so it's like a big deal. Like every month when they change the menu, they're presenting all the new dishes to like a staff of like 50 people, and so they're plating up like 8 of each new dish, and 7 of them go to like the staff, and 1 of them would go to me and the chef, and we would photograph it for like the website and for social media. And so it was quite intense moments, and with all these moving parts. And he's not just assessing the visual quality of the dish, but he's tasting all the elements, and that dish is going live that night. So there's a bit of pressure for the kitchen, for the staff, for all hands, and myself included. And so typically there's not a lot of banter. It's not like a very casual time. And I just happened to get an alert on my phone that I saw from the Acme CTF forum, that was from a message from Worm, who is the head admin of the Last Resort server, telling me that he was making me a Quake 2 server admin. And I got so excited. I was like, Chef, I'm a Quake 2 admin. I'm a Quake 2 admin. I wouldn't shut up about it. And I just remember he rolled his eyes and he was like, whatever.
Yeah, the way you worded it here made me laugh when I was reading it. Where Worm is making me a Quake 2 admin.
Oh yeah, Worm. I even told him that it was Worm, and he was like, "Who is Worm?" But I mean,
love it. It's just this kind of ritzy kind of environment, and you're like, Worm.
Yeah, that's a great name for a guy, Worm. I always admired his name.
Now, this thing's about Beaver added 10,000 maps to his server. Were they CTF maps?
Oh, they're not all CTF maps, but isn't that incredible? Like, that's like not even like the tip of the iceberg. But yeah, we have like over 10. I personally, like on my computer, have probably something around like 12 or 13,000 Quake 2 maps. I have like this endless list of maps that have disappeared and that I'm trying to bring back. And I go into like these. Like when I have like a day off with nothing planned, sometimes like I just get overtaken by the urge to find. I actually found two CTF maps just in the past week. It was like this amazing day, and they just came out of nowhere. And we put them on the server, and we were playing them. And I recorded some check out these videos about them. And yeah, I'm obsessed with maps. I just think that they're so cool that and a big thank you to John Carmack for making the Quake 2 code open source, and really like pushing for everybody to have a chance to shine creatively, like within the engine, and using all of the copyrighted material. Like what a great guy, what a great move. Like there's so many people that have been able to springboard off of their Quake 2 projects into like the real world of software, and it's really inspiring. But yeah, I love Quake 2 maps, man. I'm totally obsessed with Quake 2 maps.
I'm gonna send you one.
What? That's amazing.
It's horrible. No. It's a terrible map.
Oh, Dump Truck, you must know something about me. I only like terrible maps. That's totally my taste. Ask anybody.
Yeah, actually, just very quickly, last night was the first time I played Quake 2 in many years, as far as multiplayer, especially online. In fact, I don't even remember when the last time I played. I probably played with my kids, local area network stuff, but our next guest that we're going to interview a little bit later is head of, or founded the U.S. Quake community, and they have Quake 1, 2, 3, and Doom multiplayer servers up and running, and not to get too much into his story, but I wanted to jump on there because I know we had the kind of 2 Quake 2 interviews right in a row, especially multiplayer stuff. So
oh man, that sounds awesome.
I'm kind of getting sucked back in. So.
Oh, be careful, it's.
I might have to play some Q2 GM or CTF.
Well, there's the guy Magic Dave who was the original creator of Rocket Arena too, and he holds like a lithium deathmatch night every Tuesday, so that's happening. And we have like a guy that was in the combat-oriented design group on Planet Quake and made out a bunch of Quake 2 maps with that group back in the day. And he's come back and he's making like mashups and like new maps. And Beaver makes maps, and there's a lot of map making going on. I'm Merrick, and there's a guy named Underlord who was friends with Merrick and like that whole Backshooters group. They're still around, and that guy Underlord is actually a painter. I have one of his paintings.
Nice.
It's amazing. Like, this group of people is so talented, and that's why I say I'm not really a knowledge or know-how kind of guy. Like, I don't know how to make a map. I just really like to see what other people are capable of creating. And so yeah, Dump Truck, if you want to send me a map, man, I would love to check it out. I don't know, ArrrCee, if you got any rare Quake 2 Capture the Flag maps, send them over, man.
No, unfortunately, my days are spent with Quake 1 most of the time. So.
Well, just like cooking, one day I'm going to get deep into Quake 1, so get ready. I don't know how to. Been working in restaurants for 20 years. No idea how to cook anything, and I've been playing Quake 2, for the same amount of time. Never played Quake 1 or 3. It's going to happen.
That's wild. That's awesome.
I think you'll have a good time with them, man.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just been a real pleasure having you on the show. And
well, I love what you guys are doing. Thank you so much.
There's so much more I wanted to talk about. So, just on personal note, let's stay in touch and send me some links and Discord invites and things, and we've got to try to bring some of these communities together and cross-pollinate, because I know that there are Quake 2 fans in my little community, that the Quake mapping community, that comes up quite often. Like, does anybody map for Quake 2? Does anybody play Quake 2? And so,
oh, awesome.
So I'd love to expand the horizons and kind of, like I say, cross-pollinate the community. So definitely stay in touch, and we would love to have you back on later down the line. Yeah.
You guys are very inspirational with what you're doing, and I'm always listening and loving every show. So thank you so much for putting out this amazing podcast, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to you guys.
Anytime, my friend. Anytime.
Yeah, and so he stopped the recording, but yeah, we definitely got to stay in touch, man, because I've only seen probably 3 of your, maybe 4 of your videos, because what I do sometimes, I'm on the elliptical and I always fire them up. So
well, be careful. I wasn't joking. There are some dangerously unwatchable ones. There's one that starts off with me talking about the Panther XL. And then it gets into the guy that was starting a Quake 2 clan to play on that trackball joystick controller. Ended up working, and he lives in Michigan, and he had this LAN party, and now he's making the world's largest edible catnip balls, and he's giving them to zoos and leopards and.
I gotta watch these things.
There's some weird shit.
I just wanted to say that the recent one, your GameWorks one, was so amazing. I mean, the footage was awesome.
Oh man, I don't like to talk about. I didn't want to talk about this on the show, but the guy that gave me all of that material and everything could not be more of a completely deeply polarized political person. Like I won't even get into like the partisan like leanings, but like opposite to me on the spectrum. And it was like really like this like cathartic thing to make that movie, just on the fact that like I felt like I was able to collaborate with somebody across the aisle, and they were very generous, and I tried to reciprocate and like meet their. So yeah, there was a lot going on with that. Thank you so much for watching that one. That was like
it was really compelling, and it rang a bell for me. But so what happened was I got into Quake 1. And I was involved in Quake 2 in a modding scene, and I didn't really play a whole lot. I did a couple maps, but then again, I was on that team. And then, but I had some really busy times that was kind of the beginning of my career where I'm at now. And so there was a lot of busy times. So I remember hearing about that, but I never really, saw any of that.
Wow, you heard about it, though. That's amazing.
It just blew my mind because, DreamWorks was on my radar because I'm here in LA and kind of some dealings with Katzenberg. So,
Oh, hey, man, if you ever want to go rock climbing, I could get you in for free at the rock climbing gym.
I was going to say, if you come visit your sister, dude, you gotta come by. And
definitely. I'll definitely let you know.
I would love to. I mean, I don't know if I can get off the ground, but I'd definitely go over there and say hi and check them out. Do you know what, like, are they in L.A. or, like, what city is that in? Because I wrote it down, Stronghold Climb.
It's just outside of downtown L.A., and if I was smart, I would be able to tell you. It's, like, a well-known, like, I guess you would say neighborhood of L.A., by just,
Yeah, no worries. I'll take a look. I probably actually I've driven by it.
There's like something called the Brewery Arts Complex. Does that ring a bell?
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, I know exactly where they are.
Oh,
That's
cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, I was just visiting them, and they if I the next time I visit, I'll definitely let you know, and maybe I could just stop by and say hello.
I'd love to meet you in person. It'd be great, man. Definitely.
Well, thank you guys so much. It's been such an awesome experience, and it's been. I think that it was all a blessing that there was that delay, because it really allowed me to organize like my thoughts better. And so, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think you had some great stories, some great information. Like Dump Truck said, we'd love to have you back in the future for sure. If you end up outlining another thing of stories or anything new that you're working on, for sure.
Well, I'll let you know, but I just am looking forward to the future episodes that are not featuring me, because you guys are doing an amazing job. And
thanks. And listen to the next one after yours for sure. I mean, I know you're listening to all of them, but Nationwide Moose is going to be our guest, and he's that guy on the let's see, what is it? U.S. Quake community, and it's very new, but it's starting to kind of take off. And I had a blast last night. So.
Man, I feel like every story or every interview that you guys do like introduces me to something that I've never heard of before in my life. Like that's like
there's a lot of different sides to the community for sure.
It's awesome.
All right, well, we better get off and get him going there. So take care, and we'll definitely be in touch.
Thanks so much, guys. Thank you, ArrrCee. Thanks, Dump Truck. Take it easy, guys.
Thanks, buddy.
Right on, bud. See ya.
Okay, let me make a new one here. I'll send you the link.
Yeah, I'm gonna run off to the little girl's room.
I'm downloading the thing, and then I'm gonna go. I'm still here. I'm sorry.
All right. He jumped off, so I'm like, but.
All right, well, take it easy, guys.
I thought you were ArrrCee, and I was expecting him to talk. I was like, hey, what?
Oh, hello, this is ArrrCee with my big orange cat over here. Don't worry.
Take care out there, man.
Bye.